Yeah. 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 So many lies that you hear from the net, they don't get her respect. She reporting the truth, not a check. You want an unbiased opinion straight from the chest, not a bit of accomplice or someone here for a check. Tune in, these are thoughts from a lawyer on a mission who goes so hard it's like she works on commission. Trolls in the comments might say she tripping cause they lack the knowledge, they don't know they missing. Got a couple current events that you like, wanna know about law from the eyes. Tired of all these blogs running lies because their agendas are disguised. Tune in to the intellect, cause I'm sure y'all missing all the facts of the case that she steady is gifting. Someone here for the people, man, it's so uplifting. If you ain't subscribed yet, then you just omitting facts.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pam Esquire, also known as Your Law Intellect. If you would be so kind to come in and hit the like button so everyone else knows that we're here, and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. If you have read the title, you know that we do have an update on the Ernest Williams case, which is the ex-husband of Shirley Strawberry, who is the co-host of the Steve Harvey Morning Show. We have been covering this case for the last few years. All right. So if you are not familiar, make sure you catch up on the 5011 videos that we have in the archives. Well, we covered a motion that was filed by Ernest Williams a while back, of which he was trying to suppress all the evidence that was taken by the police into evidence, stating that they didn't have probable cause and they weren't supposed to take it out of there. All right. They weren't supposed to take the items up out of that vehicle. And so he filed a motion to suppress. And we went to that first hearing back in December of 2024. And then there was another hearing, I think Marchish or something. I think the judge puts it in there. Then there was another hearing of which Shirley Strawberry testified. And I think when Shirley Strawberry testified, it kind of sealed the deal for the judge. However, as I said before, it's a little close call there, a little close call. And I think the judge is somewhat agreeing it may be a close call, or maybe not. Maybe he don't have a problem with just giving out these certificates of appealability. So what happened today is that a certificate, make sure that I say it exact, certificate of immediate review was filed by the court because apparently Ernest Williams wants to appeal the decision of the court denying his motion to suppress. And the judge, so let me just give some procedural background before I get into it. So typically when it comes to appeals, you wait until after the case is over. But sometimes you have certain issues that come up of which will affect your trial and may affect the outcome of your trial. And so you ask the court for an immediate certificate to review the case, and the court will say, yes, I agree. This is something that is of importance of which needs to be settled. And so on today, it looks like what Ernest Williams plans to do is to appeal the decision of the court denying his motion to suppress the contents that were found in the vehicle. Thank you all so much for coming on in here. Hey, Only Me 23, thank you for gifting a membership. I appreciate it. And Queen Brielle, thank you so much for the super chat. So we're not going to be here long. Okay, we're not going to be here long. I was just here to give you an update. I was actually on my way up out the door because you guys know I was trying to see if I could check out Michelle Brandon and if they detained her or not, if you saw the video from yesterday. So let me pull this up for you all so you guys can see it for yourself. Certificate of immediate review. The motion of Ernest Williams, a defendant in the above style case, for suppressing the search of his vehicle, having been duly presented to the court on December 18, 2024 and August 11th, 2025, and said motion being denied on September 4th, 2025, it is hereby certified that the decision in order denying Defendant Ernest Williams' motion to suppress vehicle search is of such importance to this case that immediate review by an appellate court should be had. And this was filed this morning at around 10 o'clock-ish, 10:30 in the morning. And so for those of you that was wondering whether he was going to appeal the decision or not, now you guys got your answer. It looks like what he has done is that he requested from the court if they would issue an immediate certificate of review because they feel like this is important to their case, which is currently scheduled for November 12th. So I would assume that that trial probably is not going on November 12th. Because that would essentially mean that the Court of Appeals just makes the decision within 30 days. I mean, they may move that fast, but I've just never seen it before. Usually what happens is the trial is, the case is stayed pending the opinion of the appellate court, but we shall see. So what say you? I think personally from a professional standpoint that, his attorney should have appealed it. I do think it's very interesting. Now, I also think that they have outside information where they probably don't even need what is in the truck anyway. I think that when you have live witnesses that have made their own police reports, you kind of got enough information. Then you have the landlord over there at the house where that indictment was recently filed, who will be testifying as well. I think they have a lot of outside testimony personally, but perhaps, this can be twofold because now he has the indictment about the vehicle allegedly being obtained with fraud as well. So I don't know how that's going to play out now since they indicted him on the actual alleged fraud based on Shirley Strawberry's testimony. I don't know, guys. I don't know. Queen Brielle said prolonging the trial again. He is fighting for his life. You guys acting like he just going there for a little possession charge and they gonna send him to drug court. No, this man is facing a RICO. He's facing all the individual predicate acts they're saying occurred in the RICO. He just got another indictment that came down that was related to Shirley Strawberry, and then another indictment related to the landlord over there on Pine Grove. So he's not, you got to fight. I know y'all don't like people, but this warrants a fight when you're facing years where you ain't gonna see the light of day. So I'm not mad at it. I don't know again how that's gonna affect. I'm interested to see what their argument is going to be. Maybe they're saying there is no real case law on point because they were married and Ernest Williams did a lot of things of which he used her name and she was aware of a lot of stuff that he was doing. Maybe he got some evidence that he knows that she knew that it was in her name and what he did to get it. I don't know what he got in his arsenal. But what I do know is on the Court of Appeals, the only thing that you can utilize is what is in the lower court record. So you can't come with no new evidence, not for this appellate portion. They look at the record and you file what your issues are, and you may get oral arguments. You can request oral arguments, but if it was not litigated in the lower court, you don't bring it to the Court of Appeals. So you don't bring new issues. So it has to be what's on the record. So if we look at what was on the record, it's basically Shirley Strawberry saying that it was fraud, that he obtained it without her permission. She didn't know who those people were that were considered references. I don't think she was familiar with the email, and that was not her signature. She did not sign it. She did not know it was in her name. And I don't know if he was able to really dismantle much on cross examination, of which it would take away that testimony. Now, I guess the issue would be is if it's procured from frauds, or if it's procured similar to they're using it like somebody who stole a car, that you don't have an expectation of privacy. I noticed there were a lot of case law with that. So maybe they're saying this is a new issue of which a married couples and this happens, and she finds out about it, but she never tries to denounce it in any way, continues to let him drive, continues to pay on the car note. And maybe that argument is, even if he did originally get it by fraud, somehow that was extinguished because she allowed it after the fact. I don't know what they're going to say, but I'm going to sit back and see what they do say. But that is the newest and the latest on the Ernest Williams case. Will Shirley have to testify again? No, it's the Court of Appeals. Where is the crazy woman that is always on jail calls with him? Will she also have to testify? Also, if you're talking about this Court of Appeals, as I just explained, is focused on the trial transcript, what happens in the trial court, and also your brief. And you may request oral arguments, but that is what appellate is based on, the record, and whether the court got it wrong in his analysis based on the record. So it scrutinizes the court's application to the law and if it was proper and how he did it. Only Me says Shirley knew nothing. Erica and Dominique got him that truck. How you know Only Me 23? Do you know these people? Just say yes or no. But he wasn't legally married to Shirley, so would that work? I mean, I don't even think the married portion of it matters. If I'm saying the latter part of what I said, their argument could possibly be. I don't know. I'm just shooting from the hip, all right? I ain't got no case law to back up nothing I'm saying. I'm just saying maybe that's what they're arguing. But if you have someone like, say, for instance, you find out your kid took your credit card and bought some stuff from it, and you know about it, and you say you gonna pay me back for this or whatever, but you choose not to press charges or do anything against your kid, like, are they going to use that type of analysis of, okay, it may not originally happen, but you found out and you were okay, or there were a pattern or practice of me doing things on your behalf? I don't know. I don't know what they got, but all I know is all they got is what was on the record. And I didn't really see much happen on cross-examination. Maybe he was eliciting some things that we don't know, and he had a method to his madness that we don't know about. I don't know. So yeah. Tyrone said he was married to 2 other women. Yes, he did steal from her. That has nothing to do with the motion to suppress at all. That is right now an allegation. He is accused of bigamy. He has not been convicted of it. Now we can look at it and she never got it annulled for fraud. She just got a divorce. Why she chose that, I'm not sure. But right now, as it stands, there's not a decision that he actually committed bigamy. Even though, we saw the divorce record. We don't know if we've seen the divorce record for the first wife, but we know that we saw one years later in 2021 for Martha. So we know he was married based on that. However, he has not been convicted of bigamy yet. So we have to look at things the way they stand today. He's been charged with it, but he hasn't been convicted. You don't know them folks, just following the case in my analysis. Okay. So Respectfully, you should probably say things in not so of a matter of fact way, because the way you said it, I thought you knew everybody, because you was there and you were recording it or something, because you did say that was Dominique and Erica. Like, you don't know that. You said that in a matter of fact way. That's why I asked the question. So no, you don't know them. All right, duly noted. So you're just speculating and it's your opinion. Hey, Miss HLS, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. For Always Forever said maybe she only knew once he was locked up and she had to pay the truck payments. I believe that's what she testified to. So I think the issue will be, so what happened in the brief is it will specifically say what the issue is. And the issue may be under these specific circumstances in this set of facts, does this apply to the law? Similar to like what we go through with Diddy. We ain't never seen nothing like that with Diddy and the freak offs and all of that. And they were trying to fit it into a RICO. And so the jury was like, this doesn't fit. So maybe they have kind of the same type of argument, line argument or whatever, that they're going to try to say that maybe it's no case on point. In the opinion, though, the judge did mention a case of which I think it was a hotel room was procured by fraud. And they were deemed not to have an expectation of privacy when they came into the room. So to me, that does seem more on point than someone who stole a car from Publix or something and just decided to drive it around and joyride. And then when they get pulled over and they find stuff in there, they're like, well, you can't take the stuff out the car because I didn't give you permission. I didn't give you consent and you didn't have a search warrant. And they're like, you don't have an expectation of privacy because you stole this joint out of Publix. You don't even know the owner. So in this, of course, he knew his wife and it's different circumstances, but the judge didn't use case law like that. In his opinion, he actually used case law that seemed more on point. But hey, thank you, Muffin, for the super chat. I appreciate that. Muffin said he knows he is doing jail time for the white collar crime, so he probably feels he has time to do everything available to him. Well, I mean, I think that you should always fight. You should always fight, especially when your freedom and your life is, spend the rest of your life in prison. But also, you may want to do it for leverage. If he can get some play on it, which I don't know. But if he can get some type of play on this from the Court of Appeals, heck, the state might take it to the Supreme Court. We don't know. But anyway, if he can get some play on this, it does put him in a better position. Because, I mean, he's a lone ranger out here. You got Erica already played out and was like, I said, well, are you going to testify? I'm going to do whatever they tell me to do. You got all of these people, like, you don't really have that much support on what you're saying really transpired during this time. You really don't. So, yeah. That's that, y'all. Hit the like button. Good to see you, Houston Foodie. He said, I'm going to fight. Fight. Glorious Love said, I knew this was going to happen because what does he have to lose? Exactly. Why wouldn't you try to appeal it and see what happens? And maybe they negotiating something. We don't know. We're behind the scenes. Maybe for the exchange and not having to deal with the Court of Appeals, they decide to give him an offer that he can't refuse. I don't know. But I mean, it doesn't hurt him to appeal. Sonia is pushing the email. She says Shirley did, which she didn't allegedly. I'm not sure, Muffin, what you're saying right there. If you could rewrite that, because I am lost with that. And I want to understand what you're trying to say. Shirley said, Shirley didn't know them folks, and that's what she testified to. She said she don't know them folks. Petty Patty said, we heard Shirley said on GTL line that she thought that the truck was paid for. That is true. She didn't know that truck was in her name until she had to go pick it up in the impound. Okay, the latter part, I don't know about Petty Patty. The first part, I agree. She did say she thought the truck was paid off, and he responded and was just some gibberish and basically was like, well, yeah, yeah, that what I was on my way to go and turn it in, and that's what I was gonna do. I was gonna get the new one and whatever else he was saying that made no sense. She's like, oh, okay, and she kind of just cut him off. And then you get me now? You understand now? You understand? And she was like, yeah. So we never, I don't think she really understood, but she been with him longer than me, so maybe she did. Hold on a second. What's tomorrow? Wednesday. Tomorrow, both defendants and his. Okay. Is this in person? I'm trying to see if this hearing in person or on Zoom. Were they legally married? I don't. That is part of the indictment. We're saying we see that he was married, and we know a married person can't get married. But I'm saying that he's been indicted on bigamy, but he has not been convicted of bigamy. She got a divorce. So I'm just saying. She just agreed with whatever he said, even if she didn't understand. Yes, that's what it looked like. It was like, oh, okay, all right. So he's alleging, I don't know. I'm gonna have to relook at her testimony to see if I could pick up some things that maybe he was able to pull out of her of when she really found out about the truck and all of that. I think she was saying once she realized she had to start paying it because it was gonna affect her credit. That's how she realized. So apparently, because he had it for a few years, so apparently he was making sure it was paid every month because she didn't know nothing about it, according to her. So this is gonna be interesting. We can go back and forth. Well, they wasn't married no way. She lied about the. I mean, it's all an accusation right now. Again, I'm not negating that we saw paperwork that tends to lean towards you was married, and a married person can't get married. But it's still a charge that he has not been convicted of. And I think people are basing opinions on as if he's already been found as to be a bigamist. He has not been found guilty of being a bigamist as we sit here today. All right. You said with all this schooling that she has, why does she sound like she is slow or rode the short bus? Who? Who are you talking about? Y'all so mean. Why are y'all so mean? I'm just trying to let you all know the latest update. Why couldn't she get her G-Wagon back? Now, that was in his name, I believe, or his company's name. And of course, a lot of this stuff, if he got anything, it probably got seized because it's alleged. So there's an allegation that he bought that using someone else's car money or so, traded in their car, and that's part of the indictment. So that's the part. The G-Wagon is actually a part of the indictment, I think. Hey, Diva Queen and Drag of Drag, good to see you. Hey, Brother Brown, welcome to the Intellects. Y'all got anything else to say, huh? Y'all got anything else y'all want to hit me with? Muffin said yes, it was in his name, and they found that it has two different VIN numbers. Okay, that's from Muffin. That's what she said. It's two different VIN numbers. So you saying he didn't even get it legit? That sounds like a whole nother charge then. But I don't know. I just know they took her car while she was getting her hair done, and she was so embarrassed. And there was a phone call about it. She couldn't believe it. And they offered her a ride home. And that's when Officer Fields was like, "You don't know who you married, sis. You don't know who you married. You don't know him." And she was like, "I know him." They were like, "You should come down and talk to us." And she was like, "No, no, no. I love my man, my man, my man." So I was like, "All right, sis." And then she went back and Nesto called her and she explained to Nesto everything that happened there, and she was embarrassed. I think it was the hairdresser took her home. For Always Forever said, one question is Taylor case, do you think gonna be a RICO? They did not file a RICO. But could it have potentially be like our district? They do RICO obviously, but they ain't giving it out like candy. So could they? Yeah, but I mean, each charge that they did, which was forced labor under the David E. Taylor case, carries 20 years apiece. So I mean, if you're trying to get them to go away for a long, long time, then they already been filed enough for it. So that's just more work for them to do. What up, though? 313. You know that's how she sound on there. She's like, "I don't understand. They don't even have anything on you. They have nothing. I don't understand. What is going on?" Then she said, "Yeah, so and so called me today because the feds called Diamond Jewelers, where you got the ring from, and they said that it was purchased with a fraudulent money order or check or something. And so she said she wasn't going to give out the information. I just don't know why they're doing this to you. I don't understand." And he would stop with, "All right, did you pay the rest of that money to the lawyer?" Because now I feel like all that rushing, because I used to get a little irritated. Like, she's really trying to have a conversation with you, and you keep talking about, yeah, it's about 3,000 left if you just shoot that over to him. He would slide that in. That's how you know that he a little slickster, you know? He would slide that in and be like, "Yeah, it's 2,000 more. Did you pay that 2,000?" Because I think this is Pam's opinion, nobody else's. I think that he knew eventually she was gonna find out about Sonia, about these other women, about allegations of him sleeping at their houses and driving EMSs because you done took their cars. He eventually knew it was gonna come out. So I think he was trying to front load these attorneys with all the money that he can get, so that then by the time it hit the fan, they was already paid for. That's why he was pissed off. I think when he realized when we charge by the hour, we charge by the hour. And it depends on how much you charge per hour. So if you get somebody that's charging $1,000, it ain't nothing to get through to $30,000. They charging $1,000 an hour. So when you call all them phone calls, and even when you talk to the assistants or secretaries, they have a price for that. It's not as much as the attorney, but they have a price for that. When you write letters and we got to read those letters, we put on our timer. This is how we read emails. If you doing billable hours, most of my work, I don't do billable hours because I just don't got the patience for billable hours. But this how it is. They like, "Hello, law offices, can I help you?" Yeah, this is Ernest Williams. They like, "Okay, Mr. Williams, hold on. I got Sonia on the phone and she wants to give you some information." It's like, "Okay, hold on 1 second." They're like this. So when you hear that you have 1 minute remaining, you at least know you got a good 15 minutes. If they call back, then that's 15 more minutes. When I'm reading your emails, all them times she was talking about, I sent them emails, I sent them the information. All they got to do is read it. I wrote motions, I did that. They were probably welcoming all of that because they hadn't even done any work for real on your case, but you were taking away that retainer money every time you opened your mouth, every time you sent something to the email address that I had to open and read. That costs money. And so somehow they burned through a lot of that money. I think part of it, allegedly, I guess once the attorney withdrew, some of it she may have gotten back. And he was trying to hurry up and get that moved over to another attorney. Because when he was trying to find another attorney, he was like, okay, probably thinking, I ain't in his head, but he was probably thinking, hey, I still got this extra 10K, so I'm going to move this over. And then by that time, Shirley was over it. He started realizing about March, she wasn't really picking up. She was busy. And then by about what, May, June, that's when she was letting him have it. So yeah, I feel like he knew eventually she wasn't going to be able to keep her head in the clouds. And so he was trying to get all this money up front. But that's just my opinion. I don't know any of these people. Peachy Bama said, and he thought he was so clever. I'm sure SS got some of the money back. Nestle just don't know. She probably did. You know why I think so? Because that amount that she gave, they did do like 2 appearances or something. And it would be very difficult to really justify all of that money. And you don't want to get grieved over a couple of dollars. Like your license, you can make millions off your license. So I have not ran across one case, even if they're multi-million-dollar cases, of which I'm willing to sacrifice my law license for. So, yeah. Well, Sonya says she worked in the law office, so I would presume she knows how billable hours work. Because she probably, the work that she's done, she has to account for her work as well, especially if she was doing criminal. The attorney is going to ask for the hours because they need to bill them to the client. So maybe they just thought they had an unlimited amount of money because Shirley was there. Maybe that's what they thought. I don't know the thought process. But I will note that it seems like they were shocked that a lot of this money was gone. But I mean, look at how you're contacting them. That cost. They get paid for their time. And you're utilizing it no matter how minuscule you think it is. People think, oh, you open up an email, that's nothing. Most attorneys, they don't even bill less than 15 minutes anyway. So it don't matter if it take them 2 minutes. Thank you, LK, for the super chat. I appreciate it. And so you said she worked at the law offices of Hood and Ghetto. Sometimes what you do, I know in family law, and I don't do much of that anymore because again, I don't do drama very well. And there's a lot of drama in it. But I will do it. But I don't do it very often. But at one point early on, I did a lot of family law. I did a lot of everything. I did a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that. And when you send them that first bill, of all the times they called you, emailed you, told you he said this, she said that, or they start texting you if you give them like your cell phone, or they want to do face-to-face meetings and they see that first bill and they see how they ate through that retainer because of all of the time they spent, usually that'll calm them down a little bit. So I'm assuming this attorney wasn't sending like bills of particulars. He probably wasn't even sending it out like all the stuff and what he was charging or whatnot. Then what was tripping me out about this case was she was paying the money, she being Shirley, but was advised that they didn't want the attorney talking to her at all. Wait, what? So you try to tell him he don't need to talk to her about nothing, but that's the money source. If you want to talk about anything, talk to Sonya. It was just a lot of shenanigans going on, okay? And I think that people doing videos and all of that, she kind of gets the depth of it. Plus, obviously, she talked to the prosecutor. She broke down eventually and was like, yeah, maybe I do need to talk to y'all. Something ain't right. So I think that's what happened as well. She was in love, y'all. She was in love. She ain't like, she liked the companionship. Patty said Sonya texted, called, and emailed that retainer up. Miss Lady said Sonya complained too much about how the money ran out. In my opinion, she didn't grasp the concept of billing as much as she was emailing and contact them as a 35-year veteran as a paralegal. Okay. All right, I would agree. Sonya worked at the law office. You know what? And you have a picture of him as your profile. You guys have no chill on this here internet. Could Nestor say, this is from Tracy, could Nestor say Sonya Ponytail was not his wife, so her email shouldn't count towards his money? No, it's still time on the case. And he basically designated her, was giving her power of attorney, remember, partial power of attorney. That's why she got subpoenaed. She was a part of helping him with his case, and she wanted to give all this information to them. It does not matter who contacts. Unless you say, don't talk to them when they call you, we are billing against your file. Pam, do you have the transcript for the hearing Lamont and Dion testified at? Okay, I have no clue about Lamont and Dion testifying anywhere. Do elaborate. Tell me what you're talking about. Tony B here said Nestor knew all along he wasn't getting out. I don't know. I think in the beginning few months, he didn't know the extent of what they knew or didn't know. And so he didn't know the extent of their investigation and who was contacting him and what was going on. He only knew what he was arrested for because he had an outstanding warrant. And maybe he thought based on that one little warrant, if that was it, yeah, he was going to get out. But then as they kept keeping them and finding and like adding more counts, and they didn't hit him with the RICO for a minute. They were just kind of playing patty cake, putting little counts here, little claims there, because he had about a whole bunch of just separate cases until they combined it and made it into one, and they presented it before the grand jury. And then that's how the big case came. But yeah, I think maybe initially he thought so, but around January-ish when they came with those picture charges, I think he kind of was thinking like, I don't know. You said she talked to Krell until the wee hours of the night. Did she, y'all? I don't know. I think I heard they did go out or something. What up, though? Thank you for the super chat. You said, I bet SS see what everyone was telling her regarding Nesto. SS was telling Nesto about job. Turns out SS got the job ending. What a bum she married. Sonya got crumbs and left holding the bag. Sonya is where Sonya wants to be. Where I want to be. I think she is where she wants to be. And sometimes you get so far in and too deep. And like she said, even when she got mad at him because he said something slick about her on a phone call that came out. And she was like, I always told you that I would never, abandon you or leave you. I'll still help you with your case because I feel like you were railroaded. In her mind, she just feels like, she does believe this. In her mind, it appears she just feels like all of this is relationships gone bad. So that's how she's looking at it. But the premise and foundation is, first of all, he was married. Let's start with that. So you're saying all of this stuff is civil and shouldn't come criminal. However, most things or a lot of things that are taken under the civil umbrella also has criminal. That's why you have people that sue for assault and SA and all of that, and torturous interferences, with certain things. Like, there's so many different things that overlap from criminal to civil that you can't just put it in a box and say that. No, you can say, well, this was landlord tenant, a check bounce. No. A lot of times they don't choose to prosecute you when a check bounces. However, that is not legal for you to write checks and know you don't have sufficient funds. Now, mistakes happen, of which sometimes you might write checks and you think it's in there and you forgot. You just did a whole bundle package with Netflix, Hulu, and all of them, and it came out and you just forgot about it. Things like that do happen. So they don't just run every time a check bounce, but you do have some people, like in this case, it is alleged that this man got more than one bounce check. Every time a check was written, the funds wasn't there. And then I think the bank account, something was up with the bank account too. So maybe their friendship is just one of, it doesn't matter what he does, I'm just gonna rock with him. But he would have lost me off rip with, I'm married and it was just a relationship. They was letting me use their stuff and now they mad. Like, no. Thank you so much, Muffin, for the super sticker. Child, Job is tired. What up, though? Job is tired of these people that didn't live nowhere like him, using him as an example. But I will say Shirley is the one that brought this up, which was very interesting. She compared Nesto to Job, where it starts out the scripture and says he was a just and upright man. Okay? She did say, I want you to read Job over again, okay? This is just what happened with Job. He had done nothing. Trust me, I do not believe Satan came and said, if you do ABCD, if you take all this away from him, he'll turn his back on you. I don't think it was the same scenario, but nonetheless, everyone reads the story different. But she was the one to say, it's just like Job. She did. She compared him to Job. She did. Patty said Nesto was replacing bad checks with bad checks. He wrote a few bad checks. I'm just saying it is definitely against the law. Okay. And so to say that everything should be handled in landlord tenant, no, it should not. If you're writing checks for equipment or I think it was the air conditioner or the HVAC system or what HVAC system or whatever, and then the landlord holds the bag for it, that's a problem. The landlord got to pay for it. That's against the law. Theft by deception. The same thing, there was a check case and he was blaming, I guess, the young lady that wrecked the car and was getting it fixed, I guess, at that Palmer Dodge. That was the insufficient funds too. That was indicted. So I'm just saying. Tracy, they both read Job the same way. They think Job applies to anyone going through anything, regardless to whether you actually cause some of the problems that you have on yourself. See, the difference with Job is he didn't cause none of this on himself. It was basically proving that regardless, he was not going to turn his back on God. Regardless to what you throw at him, he allowed it to happen to prove that he would never turn his back on him, that he was a just man. All right. That is not what was happening. People are equating this Job story as if every time you go through something, you're going through your Job season. No, ma'am. Some of this stuff you actually put on yourself. So you going through the I did it to myself season. I gotta face consequences. That's what season you walking in. Definitely ain't Joe. All right. He claims Dion wrote the check. Over at the Palmer Dodge, Miss Mad About Music. So I listen to the phone calls every now and then when I could catch them, but I know you guys probably know way more than me because I see a lot of you guys stay in the chat. So you putting me up on some information. I'm more focused on try to see what goes on with the docket and catch it. Try to check it every day. I'm just disappointed about this trial. That means the trial probably not happening because he's going to appeal this issue because it would affect the trial. I already had all my plans together. I'd have moved stuff off the calendar. I was going to show up for y'all this time. You talking about Joseph for always forever. Mm-hmm. Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery. Yeah, I never heard that either, Miss Lady. So it's allegedly. I don't know, Dion. I don't know. I was showing up. For y'all this time, for real, because you guys let me have it. So anyway, if you guys are just coming in, Ernest Williams will be appealing this case. Because the case is still pending, he had to seek permission. The court has issued a certificate of immediate review, of which now he will file a pleading, I think probably within the next 10 days, maybe. He will file a pleading of which he will present his issues before the Court of Appeals related to whether the court got it wrong when it came to denying his request to suppress the search of the vehicle. So that is the news on today. Toya's so dope said, I guess Hoover knows that he doesn't have a chance without the vehicle suppression. I don't know. I feel like they don't really need the stuff that was in the vehicle. Maybe unless Hoover was able to show that a lot of the names or something they found out about a lot of these people because of information in the vehicle, even if it wasn't direct information. So maybe somehow he has been able to connect the dots. But otherwise, again, remember we had the young lady, Delaney. She filed her own. She was trying to get a warrant, seeking a warrant, and Erica represented him, and it got denied, saying that, and she actually got arrested for filing a false police report. So you had her, you have Scretchen, you have all these people that are gonna come in the flesh to testify. Testimony is evidence. And so I don't know how much. Now, when it comes to those pictures, because I think they did confiscate the computer or something, but I think they got a separate warrant for that within there, but they wouldn't even got it, I guess, originally from the vehicle. And so the way it was argued before without Shirley Strawberry, I was there. It did seem like the judge was leaning towards, or no, I think I had videographer, so I saw it on video with you guys. It seemed like the judge was leaning towards suppression. And so what he did was, once he said, well, just assuming that I am going to grant your motion to suppress, tell me what evidence within the vehicle that were obtained are you saying should be suppressed? Because you keep saying all of it, but I need specifics. And so when Hoover wrote that supplement, as the judge requested, That's when the government they had their round table, and they came back and did a motion to dismiss the entire motion for suppression because they said he doesn't have standing to even argue it because he procured this vehicle through fraud. So that's where all of that happened. I think once they realized that he was somewhat leaning towards them, that's when the government put the foot on the gas and they were like, oh, no, he got this through fraud. Thank you again, Muffin. I appreciate the super chat. I think we got our goals. Thank you. Tyrone said, like you said, he has to do all he can to get out of jail. Slowberry needs to give her degrees back to a college she got it. Y'all so mean. Steve Harvey needs to get her off his show after everyone saw the trial. Listen, why would Steve Harvey get her off the show? Have you guys listened to the Steve Harvey show? I know I only listen to it when I'm in the car that early. But when I listened to it probably a week ago, it's the same as, to me, this is my opinion. Does Steve have his funny moments? He does, just like every comedian. However, a lot of his jokes are very corny to me. And he has people on there that are, Steve, you're so funny. Yes, Steve. Steve, this person wants to eat. What do you say, Steve, about this strawberry letter? You're right. You're so right. So he got people to just gas him up all around him, in my opinion. So why would he get rid of anybody on that show? He is literally the head in charge, and everyone is just fighting to make sure they maintain their position. Sure, it's the reason why Shirley thought that she would lose her job. She didn't go on there to fight about anything, to apologize about anything else, talking about anybody else or whatever. She got on and did her own strawberry letter, and it probably was some of the highest ratings they've had in a while because we all were listening, because she mentioned Steve, and it wasn't even that deep, but she apologized and she felt bad. I was running my big mouth and I was talking to my husband and I thought it was between us. I didn't know these calls were going to be released. And so that is what happened. And I want to apologize to you, Steve. I mean, come on. To me, it didn't even warrant an apology, but she made sure she did that. So that was what's important to her. If there was an ultimatum of you got to X that out or you're going to lose this position, I think she would have chose her position. She would have chose her position. That's just my opinion. So I think you got what the little not the nephew Tommy, the little junior, all of them on there are just I'm nothing that was said warrants any type of laugh. Okay, it's not funny. Maybe they would hone in more on their craft if people weren't just laughing at stuff that's not funny because they're just trying to keep their jobs. But anyway, that's just my opinion of the show. So Tyrone, I said all that to say I don't think Steve ain't no. I think she good for a minute. I don't know how true the $5 million for 5 years contract was, which is interesting because we never knew how much she made until this situation happened and some of her information was attached to documents of which she makes a decent amount, but she wasn't making $1 million a year. And so when that came out, remember, that was actually talked about on the jail call where Sonia let him know that she got $1 million a year. And he was like, them folks made money off of me. Them folks made money off of me. But I don't know how true it is, if that was really what happened, especially since we've never known what Shirley makes. So why all of a sudden when she renews her contract, we know what she makes. So it may have just been something so we know that she ain't getting fired about all of this stuff with Ernest. And the fact that she may have to testify, that may be something she started talking about on the show. And will we watch her on the show if she testifies and she comes back and does her recaps on the Steve Harvey Morning Show, you know we are all going to be listening to see like what her thoughts were and her feelings and all of that. So there's also some viewership that can be had off of this, off of her situation, if it's played right. That's what he said, Vicky Bell. Them folk made $5 million off of me. The will to win said $400K per year. I don't blame her. I would apologize to everybody. I don't understand why he was offended. And then the fact that he said, you know what, Shirley, just to let you know, Shirley, we been knew. We been knew he was in jail. We been knew. We just was waiting on you to tell us about what was happening. But we been knew. So y'all knew what she was going through, but you don't go and ask her if she's okay, if she needs anything, if she homeless, did he leave her out on the street? Like none of that, because you waiting on her to let us know at her timing when she won't let us know at her timing when she want to tell us about her husband. But she apologizing on your show, though. You know, all of that was just, Steve wasn't offended. His wife wasn't, told him to make sure he apologized, in my opinion. I could see that, Miss Man About Music. I could totally see that. Because I just didn't see much. I mean, she said things like, they were like, was Marjorie there when she went to the house? In a video, he did ask, was Marjorie there when you came over there? And she said, Marjorie wasn't there. We wouldn't have been there. So it kind of did infer that she's, she thinks she's above them type deal. Mm-hmm. Ray said, in my opinion, they're not friends like they portray. I agree. I think it's a business arrangement. Mm-hmm. He's scared of her. But anyway, y'all, we were supposed to be here for like 30 minutes, and here we are, an hour later. I missed the whole hearing now. That hearing was at 1 o'clock. I knew I should have came on here fooling up with y'all. I knew it. Mm-hmm. Y'all start saying stuff in the chat because you know how I am. That whole thing was a lie. Per Shirley, Steve told her to be out of those people's houses by New Year's 2023. Oh, the place where she was staying, because she was staying with her friends and she was like, she don't really feel comfortable. I get what you're saying. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Hey, Christine, you're not late. You're right on time. But so just to let you know, Christine, Ernesto is going to appeal the decision to deny his motion to suppress. So we're kind of up in the air on whether this trial is even going to happen at this point. I wonder if the case is going to be stayed, if they're going to try to file a motion to stay the trial, because why wouldn't you? I mean, if you're waiting on the Court of Appeals to make a decision. So yeah, that's where we are right here. And we're kind of, as we do, we are evaluating and analyzing certain facts and situations that have occurred in this case that got us to this point. And I'm not, some people I know they pissed. You need to sit down. You shouldn't appeal. I mean, he is facing football field numbers, okay? When you are facing those types, you Whatever, throw it all against the wall and see what sticks. I ain't mad at you when your freedom is on the line, but I get what you're saying. Some people are like, just bite the bullet. But if you're not offering me anything worth me biting the bullet, I might as well roll the dice. That's allegedly what happened with Diddy. Pam, the trial may happen. They may not take the case. So I don't think you know how this works. The judge just gave them the ability to appeal. They're going to appeal. The state is going to respond to their brief. And they may or may not request oral arguments, but they probably will. And if they, a lot of times though, that's interesting, the appeals court do stream those. So I wonder if they're going to stream it if they do. But anyway, I digress. Then they'll have oral arguments, or the court may just rule on the pleadings. It may be a situation where they just rule on the pleadings. Because typically oral arguments occur more often than not when the case is over. But when you're doing it on an interlocutory basis because the case is still pending and it hasn't totally been resolved, then they'll try to issue it on an opinion. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. How is he paying for his lawyer? Is he pro bono with all these motions that are being filed? That gets very expensive. He has a court-appointed attorney. He has a court-appointed. He started out with a lawyer of which Shirley Strawberry was paying for. And then Shirley said, no, thank you, Christine, for the Cash App. How generous of you. I appreciate it, sis. Let me see. Let me look some stuff up before I get off of here so I can go lay down. I might as well go lay down now. Shoot, I missed the whole doggone hearing. Let me see if they posted what happened at the hearing, if old girl getting out or not, because they move pretty fast over here in federal court. So let me see if they posted anything. Any more questions? Do you all have any more questions before we end this session for today? No, they don't have anything posted yet. Let's see if Diddy and them. I know there was a sentencing memo by Diddy. They are asking for 11 years and a $500,000 fine. There were also letters submitted by Cassie. And there were basically letters submitted by the people that testified in the trial. So we'll see how that goes. Sounds like they're kind of arguing stuff that was already adjudicated. But hey, the government said, you won't beat us in peace. What you won't do is whoop on us in public and think we're not going to try to whoop you back when it comes to this sentence. People tussling in the chat. Diddy and his ring of dancers. Nesto needs to take accountability for something. He was on that Zoom call with Erica. We know that to be true. His cars were parked on Pine Grove. He was there. He needs to stop lying. Okay, Patty. You say he need to just say, I throw myself at the mercy of the court. I did it. I did everything. If you're waiting on that, that is not going to happen. Do we feel like we see evidence and information that suggests that perhaps he's guilty of some of this stuff? Yeah, of course we've seen evidence, but we haven't even heard his defenses to any of this stuff. We don't know. So we try our best to keep an open mind, even with people we don't like, even with people that we would never invite to Thanksgiving dinner. All these people were for Diddy and not against. I'm sorry? Who you talking about, Shandy? Because those letters definitely, because remember Dante Nash, I think he filed a lawsuit against Diddy recently as well. Remember him, the stylist? He did a letter as well. And he basically said he is not a good man, you know, playing on what Young Miami said. He's not a good man. Lock him up and keep him locked up. That's what he said. Cassie did a letter. She said she has nightmares. Jordan, remember the Jordan? She was crying and stuff because they didn't even, I guess she was there in New York ready to testify and they didn't even call her. So let me show you what Deontay Nash said. Hold on. We be so all over the place on these little lies here. Okay, let's see what Deontay Nash had to say. Deontay said, "Dear Judge Submarinian." So she didn't say "Dear Your Honor," because that was really eating me up when they was a couple of them did that over there. I think Stevie J did it and Young Miami. I'm like, "Dear Your Honor." The man has a name. Thank you for the opportunity to share these thoughts. I write with great respect for this court and the difficult decision it must weigh. Mr. Combs' attempt to secure release before his scheduled sentencing hearing demonstrates a troubling lack of accountability and a continued pattern of manipulation. The charges he was convicted of, including violations of the Mann Act, are not minor. They reflect serious, deeply disturbing conduct involving the coercion and transportation of individuals for illegal sexual activity. The thought that Mr. Combs does not believe he deserves jail time is both disturbing and frightening. It underscores the depth of the lack of accountability and the danger he poses. Someone who refuses to acknowledge the harm they have caused, who believes they are above the law, demonstrate the same pattern of manipulation and abuse that has impacted so many lives. The fact that Mr. Combs believes that because he harmed people he claimed to love or call friends, he somehow deserves leniency is outrageous. That sense of entitlement makes his actions even more sickening. Yet, Mr. Combs continues to treat his process as negotiable, as though he is merely managing legal inconvenience rather than confronting the consequences of federal crimes. His efforts to preempt the court's process show not only a lack of respect for the justice system, but also refuses to acknowledge the severity of his actions. I don't even know what that's saying right there, but okay. At one point, there was public indication that Mr. Combs intended to seek professional or mental health treatment. Whether that ever occurred remains unclear. What is clear, however, is that there has been no visible movement toward accountability. Rather than allow the legal process to proceed in good faith, he has focused on tactical maneuvers meant to bypass scrutiny and maintain control, soliciting letters of support. That's what you do. Like, what are you talking about? You're doing now you're doing too much in this letter. Like, he's not supposed to fight for himself at all. You think he's just supposed to sit back and not have, everyone does character left. Even the worst of the worst people that have been convicted of RICOs have character letters. People that have been convicted of grape, they have character letters because they're trying to let people know that they're more than what they're being convicted of. I'm more than my worst day. That's the point. But you don't feel like he's manipulating because he's sending in people that support him? Everyone didn't have your experience. I mean, goodness. Anyway, his plan to escape accountability has been in motion from the very start. His violence has not been limited to private encounters, from orchestrated freak-offs to assaults on staff and strangers. His behavior has left a long trail of victims, many of whom still live in fear. Some of the worst abuse was inflicted on people he claimed to love. This is not the story of one or two isolated incidents. This is the story of hundreds, possibly thousands of people whose lives have been scarred by his unchecked power of brutality. Mr. Combs must also refrain from comparing his crimes to those of others. I mean, that's what you do with the law. You find case law where you compare it so you can kind of know where you go with this. Hold on one second. Jeez, oh beats. I don't think he just understands how this works. His conduct stands on its own and has set a new legal and cultural precedent. This is not about relative wrongdoing. It's about individual accountability for a decade-long pattern of abuse. There are many reasons why Mr. Combs should serve an appropriate sentence. Psychological impact on victims. His release will re-traumatize survivors, many of whom remain in hiding for their safety. The court has a duty to uphold justice and protect those speaking out. Influence over potential co-conspirators. Release would allow him to coordinate with uncharged associates to retaliate or construct false narratives. No remorse or accountability. To date, he has shown no genuine remorse, only carefully crafted statements issued under legal pressure. This lack of accountability should weigh heavily against any request for release. Public safety concerns. The allegations include violent physical abuse, death threats, and intimidation. His release would endanger survivors and the public at large. Beyond legal concerns, I want the court to understand the very real lived impact of Mr. Combs' abuse. This man harassed everyone around us, including friends and business associates, so relentlessly that people no longer wanted to work with us or even spend time with us. We were ashamed to leave the house. The balcony he hung banner from, a place that once offered peace, became a site of terror. The home he had me in against my will was my own. The keys and phone he stole were possessions I earned through years of hard work. He robbed me not only of safety, but of dignity. His reach was suffocating. He has caused lasting damage in lives, careers, and nearly everyone in his inner circle, past, present, and likely future. Some complied willingly, many more felt coerced. He taunted victims through songs and contradicted the truth, creating false narratives that could never safely be challenged because of the fear he instilled. He pursued Cassie through her friends, despite both of us telling him. Hold on one second. Oh, goodness. Sorry about that. He pursued Cassie through her friends, despite both of us telling him she wanted no contact and tried to manipulate situations by offering favors if I helped deliver her to him. He has openly declared to his victims that he does not respect or care about the legal system. If he does not respect the court should not extend him any leniency. I do this not just for myself, but for every mother, father, child, grandparent, sister, brother, boyfriend, husband, wife, friend, artist, intern, employee, and assistant who sacrificed for a man who only abused them in return. I've watched people take trains, move across the country, leave their families, and dedicate themselves fully, only to be mistreated, exploited, and silenced. Some of these same people have even left the entertainment industry entirely because of his actions. This issue is not only about violence, but also secrecy. Many of us were abused precisely because Mr. Combs wanted us to hold his secrets to maintain his reputation. The truth is, Mr. Combs never respected those who were closest with him. He rummaged through our lives while publicly pretending to suffer through hard times. He refuses to take responsibility privately or publicly. The abuse was deliberate, the control was relentless, the damage is lasting. The same ailments Mr. Combs now claims as an excuse are the very ones he has carried with him throughout his years of touring, conducting business, and abusing those around him. They never stopped him from being violent, abusive, or intoxicated when left to his own devices. They should not serve as an excuse now. True change cannot exist without acknowledging the harm one has caused. Claimants have changed while continuing to defend. The very behavior that led to incarceration is not accountability, it is avoidance. Mr. Combs repeatedly shifts between denying responsibility, seeking sympathy, and reshaping the narrative to suit his immediate needs. Real transformation is consistent, honest, and uncomfortable. It does not depend on who is watching or what outcome is desired. Until he confronts his actions as wrong and takes full responsibility, any claim of change is hollow. I do not expect him to be in jail forever, but I am praying for a sentence that allows the victims to heal and encourages Mr. Combs to genuinely change. For all these reasons, I respectfully urge the court to deny his request for early release and to deny his 14-month suggestion. He has been fighting the truth for the past year, and this ongoing denial is causing additional harm to the mental well-being of the victims. Survivors deserve safety, the public deserves protection, and justice demands accountability. Judge, this is not a good man. So, that's after Young Miami. How she ended hers with the whole waiting to exhale. He's a good man, Savannah. Thank you so much for your time, Judge. Your consideration means a great deal to me. Okay, so that is Deontay Nash. That was his statement. The DOJ has told all SDNY attorneys not to bring a case without the person making money. Duffy never made any money and never enjoyed any of the services that Cassie and Jane Doe got. SD said, all the BS aside, the prosecutors addressed that examples of others who did similar things and did time, or did they lie about that? I want to negate the jury's verdict with it. See, this is what my problem is, y'all. And it's not to say either you're going to respect the jury's verdict or you're not. That's the system that we have. The jury said all of this stuff that he's talking about in here, they didn't believe the credibility of it. Why? Because they were able, like even the balcony, they were able to show he was in a whole nother place. All right. They was able to show certain things of which they were able to contradict what you were saying, and it gave reasonable doubt. So he was convicted of the Mann Act. Now, when you look at people getting sentenced specifically just for the Mann Act, they are not sentences of what people are asking for. What people really want is for Diddy to be punished at a degree that would almost punish him for what he was not convicted or charged for. I.e., when you look at the government's brief, of course, they have photographs of bruises of Cassie, and they have the picture screenshots of the video, and he was not accused. He was not charged with DV or the abuse when it came to that. They tried to connect the abuse with trafficking because it's a coercion element of it. They weren't able to bridge the gap. And so here we are. And people are more pissed about that. Or people are also pissed because some of these people who were benefiting from Diddy, like a Dante Nash, who called, they said a year before or something like that, and before Diddy went to jail, and was asking for a favor and seats to some event and all of that. You guys didn't testify against him. So you're more concerned. I think a lot of people just don't want him to get out because they were speaking up. And some of these people were speaking up, and they were making it seem like they were okay with what Diddy, I'm not going to say okay, but they were over maybe what he had done, and they were still eliciting favors and stuff from him and still had contact and didn't want to break the contact with him because of the connections that he had. So I think a lot of this fear is more based on, we want it to be where he almost goes to prison and then he's broke and he can get out. He can get out, and then we ain't got to worry about him because he ain't nobody out here. Then him getting out and basically still being the multimillionaire that he is, and then somehow continuing to make money. Because he started a whole entrepreneur course in the prison, in the jail that he's being housed in right now, of which he's teaching people free game on business and all of that. So he gonna get out and try to reinvent himself in some weird way. Does he have an uphill battle? He does. Nobody is saying that Diddy was the best person in the world, but I think everybody is getting away from the fact that he was found not guilty by a jury of his peers of most of the things. Those were predicate acts within the RICO. So most of those things, they didn't even consider it being a RICO. So I don't know. Now, I don't know. How can the judge consider factors not proven beyond a reasonable doubt by the jury? So there was actually a memo that came out where you're not supposed to seek uncharged, or I think it's an acquitted conduct. But I'm sure there's caveats. I haven't read it all. I don't do federal criminal, so I haven't read it all. But I remember something did come out about that. But yeah, they will use certain allegations to enhance your sentencing, and that's what the government is doing. So the fact that was considered a leader, they're trying to use that to enhance his sentence. So there's different ways within the sentencing guidelines that they try to enhance it. The government literally comb through every page so they can try to find something. And the bottom line is, y'all got beat. Okay, you got beat, and it's almost like you're trying to get him to have to serve time, just like he did, like they didn't get beat in court. So that's that. The other one, I know Cassie did one. I told you the Jordan did one. Capricorn Clark did one. Hers was kind of short. I'm going to see where Cassie's is. Mia did one. You know, Mia kind of got... See, a lot of these people, their testimony wasn't hitting when it came to trial. And that was part of the problem. Regina and Roderick Ventura, so the parents, and so they did one as well. And who else? Of course, I told you Cassie did. So let's do Cassie's because hers was the first one. I missed that whole little hearing. So nothing for me to do right now. Let me do Cassie's. I have been in a cycle of thought and then overthought writing this letter to you. If there is one thing I have learned from this experience is that victims and survivors will never be safe. Although I can hope for justice and accountability, I have come to not trust anything. I hope that your decision considers the truth at hand the jury failed to see. See, she was honest. She wants the judge to basically almost consider what other people said and weigh their credibility yourself, even though the jury was like, it's a no, you weren't trafficked or any of that. So she's actually being honest with it and saying, I want you to consider the truths at hand that the jury failed to see. For 4 days in May, while 9 months pregnant with my son, I testified in front of a packed courtroom about the most traumatic and horrifying chapter in my life. I testified that from age 19, Sean Combs used violence, threats, substance, and control over my career to trap me in over a decade of abuse. He groomed me into performing repeated sex acts with hired male sex workers during multi-day freak-offs, which occurred nearly weekly. I was forced into lingerie and heels, told exactly how to look, and plied with drugs and alcohol so he could control me like a puppet. These events were degrading and disgusting, leaving me with infections, illnesses, and days of physical and emotional exhaustion before he demanded it all again. Sex acts became my full-time job, used as the only way to stay in his good graces. I testified that I learned to read Sean Combs' signals, knowing that when he spoke of freak-offs, he was demanding them, and that refusing meant punishment, losing my car, my phone, or worse. He controlled every part of my livelihood and threatened to destroy my reputation by leaking sex tapes, a threat he repeated often. His power over me eroded my independence and sense of self until I felt I had no choice but to submit. When he believed I had wronged him or was not sufficiently responsive, he also threatened people around me and those close to me, including my family. I regularly worried that displeasing him meant putting my family and friends' safety at risk. I testify how beyond these threats, Sean Combs frequently used violence to get his way. Over the nearly 11 years we were together, Sean Combs would hit me, punch me, stomp on my face, pull my hair, and throw my body to the ground and against the wall. The jury saw pictures of bruises on my back from Combs kicking me and saw the deep gash over my eye he caused when he slammed me into a bed frame. The entire courtroom watched actual footage of Combs kicking and beating me as I tried to run away from a freak-off in 2016. People watched this footage dozens of times, seeing my body thrown to the ground, my hands over my head, curled into a fetal position to shield me from the worst blows. This physical violence caused bruises that makeup artists paid by Sean Combs would cover up, as well as permanent scars all over my body. During my time with Combs, I was in a constant state of hypervigilance as I was always anticipating demands for sex acts or otherwise fearing retribution for any perceived slight. My descent into substance abuse was directly correlated with his increased control over my body, my money, my freedom, and my free will. I used those drugs to push through the horrifying sex acts he demanded and to numb myself to the physical pain and emotional turmoil I was constantly in. While the defense attorneys at trial suggested that my time with Combs was akin to a great modern love story, nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing about this story is great, modern, or loving. This was a horrific decade of my life stained by abuse, violence, forced sex, and degradation. I would agree. This was definitely not a love story. I spent the last 7 years of my life slowly rebuilding myself, physically getting clean from the drug abuse Sean Combs forced and encouraged, and mentally understanding how to live with the seemingly insurmountable level of trauma. The horror I endured drove me to have thoughts of suicide, ones I almost followed through on, if not for my family intervention and urging that I seek professional care. I have been to rehab and have taken part of dozens of types of therapy, modalities to confront, compartmentalize, and cope with the horrific memories of sexual and emotional abuse I endured for nearly 10 years. While what he did to me is always present, I am slowly learning how to live my life free of the fear and horror I endured, and in doing so, am fully devoted to my husband and my children. I still have nightmares and flashbacks on a regular, everyday basis and continue to require psychological care to cope with my past. My worries that Sean Combs or his associates will come after me and my family is my reality. I have, in fact, moved my family out of the New York area and I'm keeping it as private and as quiet as possibly can because I am so scared that if he walks free, his first actions will be swift retribution towards me and others who spoke up about his abuse at trial. As much progress as I have made in recovering from his abuse, I remain very much afraid of what he is capable of and the malice he undoubtedly harbors toward me for having the bravery to tell the truth. His defense attorneys claim he is a changed man and he wants to mentor abusers. I know firsthand what real mentorship means, and this disgusts me. He is not being truthful. I know that who he was to me, the manipulator, the aggressor, the abuser, the trafficker, is who he is as a human. He has no interest in changing or becoming better. He will always be the same cruel, power-hungry, manipulative man he is. When I came out with my allegations in my civil case, he flatly denied them again and again. It was only after actual video footage corroborated the exact words in my civil complaint that he issued an insincere apology on the internet. Thanks to the footage and my testimony, this is also something he will forever be associated with. For over a decade, Sean Combs made me feel powerless and unimportant, but my experience was real horrific and deserves to be considered. While the jury did not seem to understand or believe that I engaged in freak-offs because of the force and coercion that defendant used against me, I know that is the truth. And his sentence should reflect the reality of the evidence and my lived experience as a victim. So basically, Judge, I know the jury didn't believe me, but I need you to believe me to the point that you sentence him to the highest degree. That's pretty much what she's asking. Reliving in detail the events and truths described throughout the trial, and this letter causes me tremendous emotional pain. I am trying with all that I am to move on. I hope that your sentencing decision reflects the strength it took for victims of Sean Combs to come forward. I hope that your decision considers the many lives that Sean Combs has upended with the abuse and control. I thank you for your time and attention. Signed, Cassandra Ventura Fine. So that is Cassie's letter. This is where she loses me. We can't sentence him for what he was acquitted of, even though he's a bad person. I told you guys that this is what they're trying to do. So that's why the government is trying to find any ways in the sentencing guidelines to enhance it. That's what they're trying to do. Why was she still communicating with? I don't know, Kelly. And the whole running away from a freak off, that's not what she testified to. I know that's what the government was trying to use it as, but she said that they had just got done doing a freak off. And she had a premiere or something and she wanted to go rest. So she packed her stuff so she could leave. Now, of course, there's speculations on what she had in her hand, because I think it came out where they were suggesting that she may have had his cell phone in her hand or had some things that belonged to him when she left, which is what caused the altercation. There is no excuse for kicking and beating anybody, period, male or female. But it's not the way she's kind of portraying this in here is not what was happening at trial. She said at the end, they said, do you still love him? And she said, I still got love for what we had. Girl, I'd have been like, hell no. Now that would have been the time. She said, I have love for what we have. But in this letter, you're making it seem like everything was all bad all the time. And we know that a lot of it was you had perks to being Sean Diddy Combs' girl. And you have to know some of these celebrities like Combs know that a lot of people are with them because of what they have and who they are. You think they're not oblivious to that? And I think they take advantage of it. I am Blueberry Muffin said he should get life in prison. Well, that's not an option. Such violence against a woman, yes. Judge hates him. I think he's gonna get 3 to 4 years. I don't know what the judge is. Yeah, he's I don't know. Keep Sean demon ass under the prison. He's been a monster for years. Well, he can only go for what it's not fair to have him go for things that he's not charged with. mean, come on. Miss Lady, didn't Shine go to prison for the shooting where the lady was shot? Yes, he did. And that was the jury. They felt like Shine was, it was evidence that Shine was the one that shot the shot. I mean, that's what it was. I don't know. I believe I read that the judge can consider prior bad acts, but I'm not sure. The problem I have with that, though, prior bad acts usually you ask for in court, which is, you know, he did have some prior bad acts. That's why you heard about some things he wasn't indicted for. But the issue that I have with that is a lot of the stuff that they're saying, these people that wrote letters, the jury basically did not believe their testimony. I mean, that's what it's giving. They did not believe their testimony to be trafficking. They did not believe that there was an enterprise for this freak off situation. So that's the issue. They didn't believe Cassie was trafficked. She's saying in this letter, I want you to see past what the jury saw and basically say I was trafficked. That's kind of what she's giving in this letter. But yeah. So yeah, that's Cassie's. Of course, we went off on a tangent because we was talking about Nesto. Hey, good to see you, sis. Nope, the judge has not ruled on the motion for acquittal. I just double checked too a few minutes ago just to make sure that we didn't miss it. His sentencing is scheduled for Friday. That would be crazy work if the judge did actually acquit him. His attorneys did file for him to have non-prison clothes. Exactly. So that would be like dismissing the jury's verdict. That's what it's like. That's what they kind of want him to do. Judge, you take why don't you use your discernment and know that these people ain't lying on this man? So go ahead and sentence him to the fullest extent of the law. I mean, that's what they're asking. Of course, he can only go so far regardless. But I think if they give him something like 11 years or something, they're going to appeal that sentence. They're going to definitely appeal the sentence. It was some funny business going on, i.e. those RICO charges, considering Comey and other affiliations. There was too much overlap with cases and representations. Well, the jury came to a similar conclusion that they felt like it wasn't a RICO that was established. It would have been a disaster if he had been found guilty of a RICO based on a video. It would have been it's a slippery slope. You got to look at it for future precedent. The more that you inch and allow the government to fit certain conduct within statutes, the more that you open up the floodgates for more people to be convicted of things. I seen that Comey, and I'm not even a James Comey like fan, but that indictment was interesting too. So yeah. So anyway, y'all, I'm out of here. Thank you guys so much for supporting as always. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. We have talked about, if you just got here, we did talk about Nesto. He is going to appeal that motion to suppress. He has just received his certificate for review. And yeah, there's that. So we'll be on it. And we'll talk soon. You guys enjoy the rest of your afternoon if I don't come back on for something else.